So Lebanon's government, weak and divided, and ordinarily incapable of challenging Hezbollah on anything, made the most dramatic move it could make. It expelled Iran's ambassador. It declared publicly to the world that Lebanon is no longer willing to serve as the staging ground for Iran's regional ambitions. And in doing so, it handed Iran one of the most humiliating diplomatic defeats of this entire war. Now, let me tell you about Hezbollah's reaction, or more accurately, the absence of one. Because Hezbollah has said nothing, issued no statement, made no threat, offered no condemnation of Lebanon's government, and that silence is more revealing than any statement could be. Hezbollah controls Lebanon's parliament, controls major ministries, controls the military in meaningful ways. If Hezbollah wanted to reverse this expulsion order, it could try, but it has not tried, because Hezbollah knows something that Tehran does not want to admit. If Hezbollah publicly defends Iran's ambassador against the will of the Lebanese people, it confirms every accusation that has been leveled against it for the past 30 days. It confirms that it is Iran's proxy, not Lebanon's protector. It confirms that it values Tehran's interests over the lives of Lebanese civilians. And that confirmation could destroy Hezbollah's domestic legitimacy in a way that no Israeli bomb ever could. Hezbollah has always justified its existence with one argument: we are the resistance. We protect Lebanon from Israel because Lebanon's government cannot. That argument has sustained Hezbollah through decades of controversy, through assassinations, through economic collapse, through international isolation. But this war has shattered the argument because Hezbollah did not protect Lebanon. Hezbollah attacked Israel on Iran's behalf and brought Israel's full military power down on Lebanese soil. So Hezbollah is silent, calculating, trying to figure out how to survive politically in a Lebanon that is turning against everything Hezbollah represents. And Iran, meanwhile, is panicking. Iranian Foreign Minister IRGC responded within hours of the expulsion announcement. He held a press conference in Tehran, stood in front of Iranian and Lebanese flags, and said that Lebanon's decision was a grave mistake, a betrayal of historic bonds between the two nations, that Lebanon was acting under pressure from the United States and Israel, that the decision did not reflect the true will of the Lebanese people, and that Iran called on Lebanon to reconsider. Listen to that language carefully. Grave mistake, betrayal, pressure from the United States, reconsider. That is not the language of a confident regional power responding to a minor irritation. That is the language of desperation. Iran is appealing to history and emotion because it has nothing else to offer. Iran cannot punish Lebanon economically. Lebanon's economy is already destroyed. Iran cannot punish Lebanon militarily. Iran is absorbing American and Israeli bombs around the clock and cannot spare resources for a confrontation with a country that is already its ally in ruins. Iran cannot rally regional support for pressuring Lebanon because the region is actively turning against Iran. So Iran can only plead, and pleading is what powers do when they have run out of leverage. Now, I want to show you the broader pattern, because Lebanon's expulsion of Iran's ambassador did not happen in isolation. It is the most visible moment in a pattern that has been building for weeks. Qatar expelled Iranian military attachés on March 19th, declared them persona non grata, kicked them out. Qatar, a country that had tried to maintain relationships with both Iran and the United States, decided that the costs of association with Tehran had become too high. Saudi Arabia is now leading a four-nation mediation effort alongside Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey. The objective of that mediation is not to support Iran. It is to engineer a post-war settlement that permanently weakens Iranian influence in the region. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman wants a deal that forces Tehran to dismantle its proxy networks, that prevents Iran from rebuilding its regional architecture after the war ends, that ensures Saudi Arabia and its partners, not Iran, dominate the post-war Middle East. The UAE is quietly coordinating with the United States on restrictions for Iranian activities in the Gulf. Oman, which served for decades as a back channel between Iran and the West, has closed its territory to Iranian weapons shipments. Iraq has reduced coordination with Iranian-backed militias. Jordan has closed its airspace to Iranian drones. One by one, country by country, the architecture of Iranian regional influence is being dismantled. And Lebanon's expulsion of Shabani is the capstone of that process, because Lebanon was the one relationship that was supposed to be unbreakable, the one ally that would never turn, the crown jewel of Iran's regional strategy. And it just broke publicly on day 30 of the war in front of the entire world. And here is the timing that matters most. Lebanon expelled Iran's ambassador on the same day that Pakistan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey held an emergency summit in Islamabad specifically to discuss ending this war. That is not coincidence, that is coordination. Lebanon's decision was almost certainly aligned with the broader diplomatic strategy being assembled by the Gulf states and their partners. The message being sent to Tehran is coordinated and deliberate. Accept a negotiated settlement that dismantles your proxy network and restricts your regional ambitions. Or continue fighting alone, with no allies, no diplomatic presence in key countries, no regional support, and no path to anything that looks like victory. Diplomatic strangulation. And it is working. Now let me tell you what this means on the ground, because the expulsion of Shabani is not just a diplomatic story, it is a military story. Hezbollah's fighting effectiveness depends entirely on its coordination with Tehran, Iranian weapons, Iranian money, Iranian intelligence, Iranian strategic guidance. All of that flowed through channels that Shabani managed personally, and now he is gone. Hezbollah will adapt. It will find other ways to communicate with Tehran, but every adaptation introduces friction. Every workaround adds delay, and Hezbollah is not adapting in peacetime. It is adapting while Israel is massing 400,000 reserve soldiers on Lebanon's southern border, while Israeli tanks are positioned for an invasion that could begin within days, while Israeli special forces are already conducting reconnaissance operations inside Lebanese territory. The ground invasion of Lebanon is coming, and Hezbollah, which spent years preparing for exactly this scenario with Iranian support, is now facing it with its primary coordination channel expelled from the country, with the Lebanese government publicly distancing itself from the Iran-Hezbollah alliance, and with its own domestic legitimacy under assault from a Lebanese population that is exhausted and furious. This is what alliances look like when they fracture under the pressure of war. The consequences are not just diplomatic. They are measured in the capacity of soldiers to fight, in the speed of decisions, in the reliability of supply lines. Hezbollah fighters will die in the coming invasion because weapons did not arrive on time, because intelligence was not shared quickly enough, because command decisions were delayed by the friction of broken communication channels. That is the human cost of what happened this morning in Beirut, and the Lebanese civilian population will bear that cost too, because Hezbollah's war is not ending. Israel's ground invasion is not being called off. The bombing is not stopping. And Lebanon's government, in expelling Iran's ambassador, has made clear that it cannot control Hezbollah, cannot negotiate on Hezbollah's behalf, cannot stop what is coming. All it could do was make this one gesture, this one act of declaring that Lebanon did not choose this war, that Lebanon's sovereignty exists even if Lebanon cannot enforce it, that the Lebanese people are not willing participants in Iran's regional project. That gesture will not save a single Lebanese life. It will not stop a single Israeli bomb, but it matters because it changes what this war means. It confirms that Iran's strategy of projecting power through proxies has reached its limit, that the countries and people on whose territory Iran wages its wars have finally reached the point where the cost is simply unbearable. Day 30, Lebanon expels Iran's ambassador. A 40-year alliance cracks in public. Hezbollah falls silent. Tehran pleads. And the axis of resistance, the network that Iran spent 4 decades and hundreds of billions of dollars constructing across the Arab world, begins to come apart, not because of American bombs or Israeli missiles, but because the people living inside Iran's proxy states finally said enough. This is what the end of an empire looks like, not armies defeated on open battlefields, not capitals occupied. Just a series of diplomatic cables, expulsion orders, and ambassadors quietly packing their bags in the middle of a war that has cost everyone too much. I am Michael Turner. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because what comes next will determine whether Iran can hold together what remains of its regional influence, or whether this is the beginning of a collapse that reshapes the entire Middle East for a generation. Tell me in the comments, is Lebanon right to expel Iran's ambassador? Or is this a betrayal of the resistance that will only make Lebanon more vulnerable? I want to know what you think. I will see you in the next update. Lebanon just expelled Iran's ambassador, not recalled for consultations, not temporarily withdrawn, expelled, persona non grata, the diplomatic equivalent of kicking someone out of your house and changing the locks. I am Michael Turner, and what just happened in Beirut is not a minor diplomatic incident. It is a seismic rupture in one of the most important alliances in the Middle East, one that tells us more about where this war is heading than anything that has happened on the battlefield in the past 30 days. Majid Shabani, Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, has been declared unwelcome on Lebanese soil and given 72 hours to leave the country. The expulsion order was issued this morning, March 29, 2026, by Lebanon's foreign ministry, and it represents the most dramatic break in Iran-Lebanon relations in over 40 years. Let me tell you why that number matters. 40 years. Iran has been building its presence in Lebanon since the early 1980s, since the founding of Hezbollah itself. Iran did not just support Lebanon. Iran built the most powerful non-state military force in the world inside Lebanon, funded it, armed it, trained it, turned it from a small Shia militia into an organization with 150,000 rockets and missiles, a professional military command structure, and more combat experience than most national armies. Hezbollah is Iran's greatest achievement in regional power projection, the proof that Iran could extend its influence far beyond its borders without deploying a single Iranian soldier. And Lebanon just told Iran's ambassador to pack his bags. This is not symbolic. This is not a diplomatic protest. This is Lebanon publicly, deliberately, and irreversibly signaling to the entire world that it is no longer willing to be Iran's proxy state. And that signal will echo across every capital in the Middle East. Now, let me tell you who Majid Shabani actually is, because his real role explains why his expulsion is so devastating for Iran. Shabani is not a career diplomat. He is an officer of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, given a diplomatic title to provide cover for his actual job. His official title was ambassador. His actual job was human bridge between Tehran's leadership and Hezbollah's military command. Shabani coordinated weapons shipments. Iranian missiles and drones flow from Iran through Syrian territory into Lebanon. Shabani ensured those shipments arrived, cleared the logistics, resolved the complications. He managed the money. Iran sends hundreds of millions of dollars annually to Hezbollah, payments for fighters, purchases of weapons, funding for the social services that keep the Lebanese Shia population loyal to Hezbollah. Shabani oversaw those financial transfers, and he delivered strategic guidance. When Tehran wanted Hezbollah to escalate, Shabani carried the message. When Tehran wanted de-escalation, Shabani delivered that too. He was the living communication channel between Iran and its most critical proxy. Lebanon did not just expel an ambassador. Lebanon severed that channel, cut the wire. And it did so publicly, in a press release, making certain the entire world understood exactly what it was doing and why. The statement from Lebanon's foreign ministry said this: The government of Lebanon has determined that the continued presence of Ambassador Shabani is incompatible with Lebanese sovereignty and national interests. This decision reflects Lebanon's commitment to pursuing an independent foreign policy that prioritizes the welfare of the Lebanese people. Independent foreign policy. Read those two words again. Because in the language of diplomacy, that phrase means one thing. We are no longer taking orders from Tehran. Now, I want to explain why Lebanon made this decision, because this is not about ideology. This is not about principles. This is about survival. Lebanon has been physically, economically, and psychologically destroyed over the past 30 days, and the Lebanese people know exactly who is responsible. The numbers are staggering. Over 1,190 Lebanese killed in 30 days of war, 124 of them children, 51 of them healthcare workers, doctors, and nurses killed while trying to save lives, 75 hospitals and clinics bombed, 620,000 women and girls displaced from their homes, 1 million Lebanese people total driven from everything they own. Southern Lebanon is not damaged. It is rubble. Entire villages have been erased. Beirut's southern suburbs, neighborhoods that millions of Lebanese called home, have been flattened. The economy, already in free fall before the war began, has completely collapsed. The Lebanese pound is worthless. Banks are closed. Supermarkets have empty shelves. Electricity is sporadic. Water is scarce. And all of this destruction happened because Hezbollah decided to open fire on Israel on March 2nd, not because Israel attacked Lebanon, not because Lebanese interests were threatened, but because Tehran told Hezbollah to open a northern front to relieve pressure on Iran. And Hezbollah obeyed Tehran, not Beirut, Tehran. That is the core wound that Lebanon cannot heal. Hezbollah is not a Lebanese organization that happens to receive Iranian support. Hezbollah is an Iranian organization that happens to be based in Lebanon. It takes its orders from the IRGC, not from the Lebanese parliament. It serves Iran's strategic interests, not Lebanon's national interests. And the Lebanese people, after 30 days of watching their country burn for Iran's war, have finally said out loud what many of them have known for years. Hezbollah dragged us into this, and we are paying the price.